A White House teleprompter operator made roughly $100,000 betting on which words President Trump would say in his own speeches, and the government only stepped in once he started cashing out mid-sentence. I am Lambert Woollingham, and this is the Daily Shear for Friday, July 17th. I have been awake since 4 in the morning watching river gauges, which is not a sentence I expected to say with my own mouth today or any other. Let us start on the ground, where central Texas is quite literally underwater this morning. State emergency officials have activated more than 1,300 personnel across 30 different agencies as a historic, slow-moving rain system continues to trigger flash floods across central and south Texas. Governor Greg Abbott has issued a disaster declaration covering 59 counties, mobilizing swiftwater rescue teams, urban search crews, and game warden units, while the Texas Military Department has sent 100 vehicles and 750 personnel into the hardest-hit areas, including Uvalde and Kerr counties, where the rivers have simply taken over the local infrastructure. First responders have already carried out more than 75 water rescues statewide, pulling drivers from submerged vehicles as the ground reaches total saturation. Forecasters expect the system to drop as much as 30 inches of rain by the end of the week, which would dwarf last July's flooding. At least 2 deaths have been confirmed in the Hill Country, including a 65-year-old man whose recreational vehicle was swept away overnight. Hayes CISD has decided the way to fix an 8.5% hole in its athletic budget is to start charging kids to play sports, with high schoolers paying $175 for their first sport, middle schoolers paying $100, and a family cap of $315, no matter how many children are chasing a ball. There are reduced rates for students who qualify for subsidized lunch, though the new fees stack on top of existing Booster Club fundraising and equipment costs rather than replacing them. The charges trace directly back to a failed property tax election in November, which left administrators scrambling to find $12.25 million in emergency cuts. That is on top of 6 straight years without an increase to the state's basic student allotment. The board approved the plan unanimously, along with larger class sizes, suspended staff stipends, and the elimination of 125 positions district-wide. An invasive insect called the pasture mealybug is quietly wrecking Texas hayfields, which is an inconvenient time for it to show up, given that ranchers are also bracing for the return of the New World screwworm. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension has confirmed the bug in 70 counties since it was first identified last year, and it works by draining sap from warm season grasses like Bermuda and Bahia, while injecting toxins that thin the pasture down to bare dirt. Economists estimate more than 20 million acres of Texas pastureland are already infested, with another 35.7 million acres considered at imminent risk, much of it in the regions that feed the state's metropolitan cattle operations. Researchers say there is currently no pesticide approved specifically to kill the thing. The Austin City Council has opened hearings on a $6.6 billion budget that closes a structural deficit, mostly by asking residents to pay more for less. Under the plan, the owner of an average $487,907 home would pay close to $350 more a year in combined property taxes and utility rate hikes for trash, water, and electricity, and that is before a $5.1 million cut to social service contracts and a $5.8 million cut to the city's own information technology support. The squeeze arrives now that the city has burned through its federal pandemic relief money and is operating under a state cap on property tax revenue. Council members have less than a month to finalise the numbers, And while administrators are touting new spending on housing vouchers and park maintenance, the dominant theme so far has been how much it now costs simply to live inside the city limits. From the local ledgers to the national ones, where the mood is inexplicably cheerful. Retail sales rose just 0.2% in June on paper, but that headline number was dragged down almost entirely by a 5.3% drop in gas station receipts as fuel prices fell. Strip out the gas stations and core retail sales jumped 0.72% for the month, the fifth straight month of what the Commerce Department is calling strong underlying demand. Year over year, retail sales excluding gas stations are up 7.4%, the largest annual increase since December of 2022, and the growth is concentrated in actual goods rather than services, meaning people are buying vehicles and hardware, not just paying more for haircuts. All of this is happening while interest rates remain high enough to complicate the Federal Reserve's own timeline for cutting them, which is about as close to poetic justice as central bank policy gets. Wolf Street, whose reporting on this sort of thing I generally trust, notes that consumers are simply ignoring the squeeze they are supposedly under. The teleprompter operator who normally scrolls the president's speeches across a screen has been placed on unpaid leave after regulators noticed he was also scrolling through a rather profitable betting account. Gabriel Perez allegedly used his early access to presidential remarks to wager through the prediction market Kalshi, on which countries, economic terms, and slogans Mr. Trump would say out loud, cashing in on correct calls during the State of the Union and remarks at the World Economic Forum. According to the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, he made roughly $100,000 this way, and platform analysts noticed he occasionally closed his positions mid-speech whenever the president skipped a line he was supposed to read. Kalshi managed to freeze about $90,000 of the winnings before they could be withdrawn. It may be the first insider trading case ever built entirely on advanced knowledge of someone else's vocabulary. Wall Street money is draining out of semiconductor stocks and pouring into robotics hardware on the theory that actual machines are a more tangible bet on artificial intelligence than another chip. Bespoke Investment Group is tracking a surge of institutional interest tied to moves like Tesla's Optimus factory rollout and Hyundai's purchase of SoftBank's stake in Boston Dynamics. Japanese industrial robot orders are up 24.5% over the past year, which the market is treating as confirmation rather than coincidence. As hyperscalers scramble to secure their own hardware, the smaller companies making the components underneath all of it are quietly absorbing whatever venture capital used to go to chips. Fifth Third Bank is cutting 115 jobs at the Frisco hub it inherited through its $11 billion acquisition of Comerica, with the layoffs rolling out in phases between September and late January. The cuts effectively shut down the northern Dallas-Fort Worth Innovation Center, Comerica, used to run out of its Cowboys Way facility less than 6 months after the merger closed. At the same time, Fifth Third is announcing a $700 million campaign to open 150 new branches across Dallas, Houston, and Austin by 2029, which the bank describes as proof that Texas remains a growth priority. For the employees losing their jobs this month, the distinction between growth and consolidation is probably academic. Trump Media and Technology Group will start selling Wall Street trading firms faster access to the president's Truth Social posts, turning his live commentary on tariffs, interest rates, and foreign conflicts into a paid subscription product. The new tier gives institutional investors a split-second head start over ordinary users, enough time for a hedge fund's algorithm to trade on a policy announcement before the general public has finished refreshing the app. Critics are calling the arrangement a mechanism for institutional insider trading, since it hands paying subscribers early access to the unedited output of the executive branch. The company has not disputed that characterization so much as priced it. The European Commission has ordered Google to let rival AI assistants take over as the default voice and search tool on Android phones, forcing the company to open a system it has controlled for close to 2 decades. Third-party artificial intelligence platforms must now be allowed to handle voice commands, hardware interactions, and system-level searches without Google's own tools getting first refusal. Industry analysts think Google may come out ahead anyway, since submitting to Brussels lets Android position itself as the compliant, regulation-friendly alternative to Apple's closed iOS ecosystem. The ruling forces open a door while quietly reinforcing why everyone still needs to walk through Android to get anywhere at all. Overseas and in Washington, the fight is over who controls the story and who is left holding the infrastructure. President Trump used a 30-minute Oval Office address to declassify a curated set of intelligence documents alleging that China interfered in the 2020 election, claiming Beijing illegally obtained the personal data of 220 million American voters across 18 states. He alleged the intelligence community actively suppressed evidence of the interference to secure his loss to Joe Biden. That claim directly contradicts the prior assessments of the same intelligence agencies, which found no such Chinese interference operation in 2020. China's foreign ministry dismissed the accusation as fabricated, while Democratic lawmakers and voting rights advocates called the broadcast a setup for passing the Save America Act ahead of the midterms. ABC, NBC, and CNN all declined to carry that address live on their main channels, pushing it instead to streaming platforms and radio affiliates and citing a lack of verified news value in the president's claims. Trump used the speech itself to call the blackout a coordinated corporate plot and demanded the network's federal licenses be revoked. Broadcasters retain wide discretion over their own programming, but the decision to sideline a sitting president's scheduled national address is itself a fairly loud statement about how mandatory that programming is considered anymore. The bombing campaign against Iran continued for a 6th consecutive night, with strikes now reaching deep into the south of the country to destroy highway bridges and collapse a communications tower near the port city of Bandar Abbas. The stated goal is to break Tehran's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and degrade the Revolutionary Guard's ability to resupply its coastal missile batteries. Targeting civilian use bridges alongside military sites confirms the earlier ceasefire has been fully abandoned in favor of sustained attrition. Global shipping companies are continuing to reroute tankers around the region as energy markets price in a longer conflict. House Republicans pushed a $95 billion budget resolution through committee to fund the Iran campaign, with $60 billion earmarked for direct defense spending, $13 billion for intelligence operations, and $12 billion in agricultural subsidies meant to cushion the political fallout from disrupted supply chains. Buried in the same bill is $10 billion in grant funding tied to implementing the Save America Act's voter identification rules, linking war funding directly to election law. Republican leadership is advancing the package through reconciliation specifically to avoid the Senate's 60-vote threshold. Democrats are calling it a fiscal Trojan horse, and the floor fight is scheduled for next week. Attorney General nominee Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing turned hostile after Liz Oyer, the pardon attorney he fired, testified that she lost her job for refusing to endorse restoring firearm rights to Mel Gibson, a presidential ally with a prior domestic violence conviction. Oya told the Judiciary Committee plainly that she was terminated for declining to rubber stamp what she considered a political favor. The testimony rattled enough Republican senators that they are now demanding Blanche meet with victims from high-profile cases before they will agree to advance his nomination. It is a fairly narrow demand, all things considered, for a job that oversees the entire Justice Department. Somewhere in the West Wing is a man whose actual job is scrolling text across a screen at the correct speed, and he turned that into a six-figure trading strategy by betting on which words would come out of the president's mouth. I have to assume the rest of the staff are recalibrating. The person who tests the podium microphone now knows the sound levels before anyone else does, which is a market. Whoever refills the water glass has advanced knowledge of hydration-related pauses, which is also, apparently, a market. Give Kalshi another quarter, and there will be a contract on whether the president finishes a sentence at all, and the teleprompter operator, presumably still on unpaid leave, will still have the best information in the building, because at some point he was the one who wrote the sentence. Fifth Third says, Texas remains a growth priority, and to prove it, they are opening 150 new branches by 2029, a target. The 115 employees losing their jobs this month are welcome to view from wherever they land next. I am going to go check the river gauges again, since that appears to be part of the job description now, and that is where I'll leave it this morning. Lambert-Woollingham, still dry for the moment. The day has been shorn until tomorrow.